But everything here, organic, you know, it's helping me reach my goals and it's getting the job done, right? Keeping my body fat low, keep my muscle mass up, and making me have great quality energy. And if that is what you're looking to do, then you'll get a lot of value from this video. Okay, first things first, going to be getting some raspberries here. I make these bowls with raspberries, blueberries, some whey protein, and a rice cake. And it's pretty low calorie for the most part, but it gives me a little bit of crunch consistency and also some fresh fruit. So what I'm going to do is I always shop organically. That's why I'm at Whole Foods. And you know what? I get a lot of contention when it comes to this, like organic versus non-organic. Look, the reality is this. The more you learn about health, the more you realize you need to check for sourcing, and you should not be getting things that have fucking chemicals on it. So I still wash these, okay, because they still are probably have something on them. However, they're not grown with any pesticides or anything like that. So you always want to shop organic when you're getting fruits. So I'm going to get probably about 3 to 4 of these raspberries here. The problem is with food timing, or with when you're buying fruit, is like the timeline in which it goes bad. And if it's going bad pretty quick, that's probably a good sign, because that means it doesn't have any shit in it, right? So I have about 4 of these raspberries here. And I don't think we need strawberries. I'm probably just going to hold off on that because we have some extra at the house already. So I'm going to get some of these, and now we're going to move over to the potatoes. So we start off in the produce section. All right, up next we're going to get some yellow potatoes. Now the thing with the potatoes is you want to check for roots, because when it starts growing roots, it actually starts to develop a toxin, a plant toxin in it. Okay, I like yellow potatoes personally. I think sweet potatoes are good, but they bloat me way too much. When you have too much fiber, it tends to get some bloating in the intestines because fiber starts to pull water into it. And then you get a little bit of bloating, and digestion isn't that great. So you really got to use like the field test when you're getting foods. I prefer yellow potatoes. I think they digest easier. So I'm going to grab a couple of bags of these because both me and my wife eat the same foods. And again, just checking for root growth. Because once they have those roots in them, they have a plant toxin in them that's pretty potent, so you don't want to eat that. It's not going to kill you, but at the same time, it's not that great. So I get about 2 bags of these potatoes, and that is pretty rotational, so it really just depends on how much I actually eat of them. However, I did take them down a little bit when I was in prep, but we're starting to gear them back up a little bit, so I'm going to end up adding a little bit more potatoes in. So whenever you're grabbing anything in the store, you obviously want to check to make sure it's clean first. And like there is like the potatoes in the section over here, you could kind of pick and choose. But I'm just going to grab the one in the bags. It's more convenient for me. It may be a little bit more pricey because they package it and make it more convenient for you. However, I don't want to have to fucking sort through 100 potatoes just to get a few, you know? So a couple bags of these yellow potatoes. Let's see what else we got on the list here. Okay, so I got the fruit. And then I have, perfect, the potatoes. Now, the one thing I get bitched at is when I buy too much stuff, because I tend to get a little bit excited and carried away when I'm shopping. I tend to like overbuy, but you don't want to overbuy stuff like fruit because then it goes bad. And then you kind of screw yourself over on that half of things. So I think I'm done here in the produce section. Here's another little pro tip too. Now, when you're shopping and you're at the store, okay, is all of the foods, okay, on the outsides of the stores are generally going to be the ones that don't have preservatives in them, because they either need some source of refrigeration or they put the produce usually in their own section. So the perimeter of the stores where you want to do most of your shopping, unless you're getting some frozen stuff that could be organic as well. But generally speaking, I don't really go into the aisles too much. I mean, there may be a couple things like some canned pickles that I'll get. But aside from that, I mean, most of my grocery shopping is done strictly on the outside of the store. That's a little cheat code for you. Because think, everything that's in the aisles compartmentally, it can be stored on a shelf. And when it's stored on a shelf, it generally has a long, like, we'll say, lifespan, right? Which means they put preserves in it. However, Whole Foods is pretty good about that. But there is some seed oils and stuff in some of that stuff, and you just don't want to put that shit in your body, okay? So when it comes down to picking foods, I generally stay on the outsides of the stores, pick whole source foods, always shop organically. If anybody tells you otherwise, they're full of shit, okay? So let's get moving on. Okay, up next, we're gonna grab us some eggs here. I get some organic pasture raised. Always check your eggs, because if you grab onto them and they're busted up, you don't want to be taking those home with you. You're paying for broken eggs. Okay, so this one's good. Check that one. Good there. Now, by no means am I some sort of agricultural expert, but when I get eggs, I make sure I get pasture-raised organic, because you want to make sure that your chickens are able to roam around outside. Like, they're insectivores. You don't want them just eating corn or some shitty seed feed that they give them. You want them to be able to roam around, okay? And as they roam around, they can selectively choose the foods that they want to eat, and they're more active. They're not stuck in a pen, and that's going to make a healthier animal, and that's going to produce a healthier egg. So make sure they're always pasture-raised or organic, and they use some sort of regenerative farming, which essentially means like they allow the chickens to rotate through the land, because they can just have like a little square plot of land, and then hundreds of chickens are constantly grazing on that same land. And the nutrition in that area starts to diminish with the foods that they eat, because they're constantly pooping and eating in the same areas. So you want to have something that also has like some sort of ethically sourced regenerative farming, so they rotate the chickens around, and that's going to create a healthier egg for you. Another thing I get is some egg whites, so we're going to grab some of these up in here too, because I eat some whole eggs, and then I also eat some egg whites, okay? Now, whenever I'm searching for these, same deal. Pasteurized to make sure that I'm getting some liquid egg whites, but also on top of that, making sure that they're also organic, okay? Now, I am a huge advocate for that. There's some people that think it's bullshit. They think it's marketing, right? But at the end of the day, if when it's organic, and it has a great certification process to it, it means that they don't add anything extra. It grows in nature that way, and it's just the way it is, okay? They don't try to speed up the process through some sort of means of producing more yield, right? Or feeding them some poor quality seed or feed that's going to allow them to reduce costs overall, because you got to understand, agriculture is a business. And at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is increase their profitability, right? And you want to have farms that ethically source and actually feed their animals the stuff they're supposed to eat, and not overfeed them with like some cheap ass corn that's genetically modified or something like that. So I always try to source organically. Okay. Let's see what else we got here on the good old list. So we got egg whites, eggs. Okay, right over here, since we're in the cooler section, I'm gonna grab some chicken, some ground chicken I prefer, just because I don't like, it's a pain in the ass to like grill chicken, so I really don't feel like doing that. I'll just ground it. Also with absorption rates too. So when you think about like any type of meat-based products, the big thing when it comes to body composition is like, how well does your food absorb, right? Is it absorbing properly? And the absorption has to do with the surface area. Can like the enzymes in your stomach and the stomach acid actually get around the entire protein itself and break it down? And if you have big chunks of chicken, it's really hard for your body to break that down. But when you have ground chicken, it's broken down, and it's like, when you're cooking in the pan, you break it apart to these little pieces. So the absorption rate is much better, right? So something that has a larger surface area to go around is going to allow for much better digestion and absorption. So I like ground chicken. I prefer it. I think that it actually ends up working better long term. And it's much easier to cook. It takes out convenience. And convenience and simplicity are a big thing when it comes to scaling anything in terms of like your physique, right? So we want to keep things simple, keep things effective, and then make sure we're getting the highest return for our time and our money. So like I like to get some ground chicken, so we're going to go ahead and grab that. Again, there's a brand named Mary's that I like to use. It's organic. Let's pop on over here and grab it. Oh, you're good, man. Okay, so I'm going to get about 4 of these. This is the brand that I like to use. It's called the Mary's Organic Chicken. It is 98% lean, because chicken is a very lean animal. Okay. Now, the fattier the chicken, here's a little cheat code too, generally speaking, is the fattier the chicken, that means they're probably feeding it some sort of corn or soy or something that the animal's not supposed to be eating in large abundance, and they're not very active, right? So the leaner the meat is, the more active they are, and generally the healthier. Think about like a dog sitting at home, right? The fatter your dog is, it's probably because you're feeding it really crappy processed foods and it's not getting a lot of activity, right? So when it comes to you picking food sources that are meat-based products, the leanness is usually a good indication of its activity level, right? Now, when you get into the beefs and stuff like that, it's a little bit different because marbling plays a role, obviously, in the quality. So you got like Wagyus and stuff like that. However, when it comes to things like birds, like chickens and stuff like that, it should be generally a lean meat to begin with. So I like to get myself to 98%. I'm not worried about getting my animal fats from chicken sources. Or my healthy fats from chicken sources. I'm getting it from my beef, I'm getting it from my eggs, I'm getting it from avocado oils, I'm getting it from other sources. So the chicken, I just strictly stick with a lean 98%, make sure it's organic, make sure it's free range, and make sure it can roam in the pasture, like I said, with the eggs too as well. So I get about 4 of those for the week. Nagar actually does not eat the chicken, that's just on me. And I usually eat that with like some guacamole cups, which I actually don't get here, I get at Costco. And I also get my fish over at Costco because of the bulk of it. So now I'm going to get some beef. Okay. So that's 1 more here. I'm cleaning you out. Sorry about that. All right. So then we got some beef here for me. Let me put a couple of these down so I don't drop them. Okay. So when it comes to the beef, now generally I get a fattier beef. However, since I've been prepping, I've been getting a little bit leaner beef because obviously the reduction in calorie load. However, 93% is what I'm getting today. If you're getting the 85%, that's fine too. Sometimes actually the fattier beefs are healthier for you because you're getting your healthy fats from this. Now, again, if you're worried about things like cholesterol levels and stuff like that, it's not going to be coming from the beef and the eggs. Okay, it's going to be coming from shitty trans fats that are manufactured, like seed oils. That's the stuff that's going to affect your cholesterol in a negative way, not healthy fats. Okay, so if you're concerned with eating beef, stop worrying about that. Like the cholesterol elevation is going to be coming from things that are low quality fat content. Okay. Yeah. This is healthy cholesterol. This is going to be good for you. Okay. So don't worry too much about the fat content when it comes to the beef. Just worry about the sourcing. That's going to be the big thing here. I like this company. It's 100% grass fed. The only thing I don't like about this is it says it's vegetarian fed. And that could be that they're feeding it corn and stuff. Like that's one thing I don't really agree with in terms of this company necessarily. But I would say in terms of it being the best of the worst, this is going to be a good brand to work with. So this is the brand that I'm actually using right now. It's called Organic Rancher. I'm sure there's better sources out there. However, this fits the bill. It's checking most of my boxes. It's still organic. You know, they have an animal welfare certification, means they don't abuse their animals. So that is good in my book, and that is good enough for me. So I get about 8 packs of these beef. And then when I go to actually cook my beef and I go to measure it out, I measure it out in grams. It's a much more accurate way than ounces because when you're going to make extractions of calories or addition of food, it's much easier to add grams than it is ounces, right? So it's a much more finite and micro measurement. That way I can really change my calorie distribution and the macros that I get from my food because I'm changing it in small portions. I'm not changing it in like a huge, like 1 ounce at a time, ½ ounce at a time. It's just a sloppy way of measuring things, okay? So I got the beef. Let's see what else we got on the list here. Okay, so we got the chicken, we got the beef, we got the eggs, the egg whites. Now I got to get some rice cakes, pickles, pepper, and organic ketchup. So let's head over here to the seasoning section. Probably one of the only things that I go in the aisles for. Okay, the good old Heinz here. Just gonna get one of these today. Another thing I like to do is, let me grab this because this is probably the best hot sauce that I have ever had. I don't like traditional hot sauce. I think like when people use it for like buffalo seasonings and like the Frank's Red Hot, it tends to bother my stomach. However, this does not. This is an organic chipotle pepper sauce, and this is fantastic. So this has been the best tasting hot sauce that I've used. I actually don't have this on the list today because I have some at home, but if you guys want to ever add some pizzazz to like your egg whites or like even like your beef meal, this is like a 0-calorie option. It's got a little bit of sodium in it, but you shouldn't be too concerned with that, especially if you're lifting a lot. Right here, this Chipotle hot sauce is O Brothers. This is fantastic. This is my favorite by far. I think it's got a good flavor to it. And if you're looking to add a little bit of pizzazz to your meals without adding too much extra calories, that has 0 calories to it. And it's also organic, so I like that a lot. And then lastly, let me move this forward a little bit here. Whoop. Okay. Lastly, pickles. Okay. Now, I love me some pickles. I think it's a great source of fiber, has a little bit of sodium in it. Again, not too worried about sodium at this point. But on top of that, it has probiotics in it. It's a fermented cucumber, right? So I don't eat a lot of vegetables unless they're fermented, and a lot of cultures don't either, right? It's because our body has trouble breaking down raw vegetables in their whole form. So what I like to do is actually get some pickles. I just add this in, and it's a perfect diet food too, because if you're looking for a little bit of texture, when your food's real soft, it's got a little crunch to it, but on top of that, it's also going to not add any calories to the diet itself. So I get a couple of these. I like to get this brand right here. I like the Spears. I think the whole pickles, like the rind doesn't actually, it is like kind of encapsulating the whole pickle. So the vinegar that they put inside this doesn't fully access the fruit inside the pickle itself, right? So I like the Spears because they cut them open and it gets a little bit more sourness to it. So again, I just use Whole Foods brand. You don't got to be particular about this. The one thing that you want to make sure is they don't add any extra sugar to it, right? Because that's not what I'm looking for. And you try to limit any excess added sugar in your diet to begin with because of many reasons, like skincare, health, but also on top of that, it's not really good for your stomach bacteria. So you want to pull that back. So I don't want to mitigate any of the effects of the probiotics. So I want to limit that as much as possible. So I'm going to grab myself a couple of these pickles. Let me actually check the list because my wife likes the ones with the rinds fully around it. I want to see if she put that in there. Let me see here. Okay, she has one pickle. If I get two, she's going to bitch. So I'm going to, let me just put one of these back. And I'll get her one of hers. Okay, I get her like these little baby. I get her one of these little baby dill pickles. She's very particular. She's very organized, a big tracker. And to her, it's less about the money and more about like the peculiarities of going off of our tracking, right? She likes to have things kind of within certain ranges, and she likes to budget, and we go above and beyond that, she kind of gets stressed out. So I need to make sure I don't get anything extra. Anyway, let's see what else is on the list here. I think I got the ketchup, I got the pickles. Oh, pepper. Okay, that's going to be in the aisle next door, so let's go ahead and grab that. Let me grab me some pepper here. Again. Now, seasonings, vegetables, fruit, things that are grown in the ground, always checking for organic because, look, the soil quality is already pretty shitty in America to begin with. There's a lot of contaminants in that, but I don't want them adding other contaminants on top of that. So whenever I'm searching for herbs, spices, fruits, vegetables, I always want to make sure they're sourced organic. Anything that grows in the ground, okay? So I get just this simply organic black pepper. Very simple. I don't add a lot of seasoning, actually any seasonings at all to my food. I add a little bit of this garlic herb seasoning to my potatoes. This is literally just sesame seeds, garlic, I think a little bit of pepper. There's actually no salt in it, which is nice. And then I just add pepper to the rest of my food. And that's about it. So I don't like to add extra seasonings. And I think like as you start to reprogram the taste buds, you don't need a lot of seasonings. You can taste the natural flavors of your food. And sometimes when people actually require that, like they require large amounts of seasoning to their food because they think it's bland, it's because their brain has been programmed to have high sugar, high fat, high salt foods, right? It's desensitized their taste buds to actually taste the natural flavors that the food has in itself. I can eat plain cooked chicken now and actually taste the richness of it. And a big part of that too is if you're actually eating something that's organically sourced or not, you can actually taste a large difference. If you go outside the country and they don't abuse their animals, kind of like we do in terms of manufacturing, the quality of the taste is significantly different. Like it tastes a lot more juicy and rich. And when you actually take out a lot of those seasonings in that profile, you'll actually be able to taste the naturalness of the products that you're cooking, right? Like the meats. And you don't need any extra seasonings. And I don't encourage you to get into that habit either, because if you want to here and there, it's not going to kill you. But if you're over seasoning everything, you got to ask yourself, like, what is in that seasoning itself? How was it sourced? You know, how was it grown, right? How was it manufactured? And is there any contaminants in it? Is there any potential herbicides or poisons in it that they put? Any glyphosates in it? And all these things essentially wreak havoc in your stomach. And something as simple as a seasoning could completely degrade your body's ability to absorb your nutrients in food. Right? So you want to be very skeptical, limit the seasonings if possible, and learn to reprogram your taste buds to actually taste the richness of your food in itself. So that's a little tip there for you. Let's see what else we got here. We got the pepper. I think the only thing I need left is a little bit of rice cakes and frozen blueberries. The good old rice cakes of bodybuilding. So let's head over to the rice cakes, and then we'll head over to the blueberries last because those are frozen. I don't want those to like melt in the car. Okay. So we're heading down the chip aisle. Damn, that gimbal is tracking like a son bitch. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to go to the rice cakes. Okay. So now when it comes to rice cakes, there's a whole bunch of different ones, but I like the cinnamon ones. And the key with these are making sure they're not crushed to shit. I mean, especially if you want to eat them whole. So I'm going to get probably about 5-ish bags of these because me and my wife run through them like crazy. And rice cakes are a good way to add a little bit of crunch and consistency to your diet because a lot of the foods, well, we just dropped that one. Yeah, let's put that one back for someone else here. Let me grab another one of these cinnamons. Okay. You know, and rice cakes are one of those things that if like, you know, in bodybuilding based diets, you're eating a lot of soft foods like potatoes and rices that are cooked, meats. And the thing is, there's not a lot of crunch and consistency to your diet. So sometimes adding something in like a little rice cake here and there can add a little bit more of like a fibrous texture, not necessarily adding fiber in general, but maybe add more of like a fibrous texture, a little bit of a crunch. And I think that can add a lot of sanity when you're actually trying to eat your diet too. Because if you're eating foods all the time that are soft, it's also not good for mechanical loading on your teeth. You know, you want something that requires a little bit of a bite to it sometimes. So sometimes we'll go out like for a steak, you know, instead of just having ground beef. That way it has some chew to it. And that mechanical loading is good for your jaw. It's good for your teeth, right? And also it's good for your psychological well-being because if your food's always soft, you're just kind of like swallowing all the time, right? There's not even much chew to it. So adding that in a little bit here and there could add some sanity, add a little bit of consistency and texture. And it's just something different. And these rice cakes are really easily digestible. I think they use like some sort of brown rice pop and they add a little bit of cinnamon to it. And that's pretty much it. But I love adding those in. I make these bowls with fruit. So I add in some raspberries. I add in some strawberries and blueberries. And then I add in some rice cakes. And it's just a delicious, delicious bowl. So I just got to get some blueberries now, and that's about it. Actually, I'm going to call my wife real quick because we have strawberries in the fridge, and I don't want to get bitched at for getting a second one. Hey, do you want me to get, there's a whole thing of strawberries in the fridge. Do you want me to get another one just in case they go bad, or what do you want me to do? Okay. Yeah, that's what I figured. So I'll just grab another one of those, and then I just need to get some blueberries, and then I'm heading out of here. All right. I'll see you in a little bit, Giblet. All right, love you too. Bye. Okay, so I am going to get another strawberry. So you guys heard it here. I don't know if you heard her on the phone, but if I get fucking yelled at for getting the strawberries, you know that she told me to. Oh, I also need to get some waters. You know, I don't like to have, I used to have, we used to drink like $400 a month in water, but now we kind of slowed it down on that a little bit, and we just use reverse osmosis filter. However, the problem with that is we use so much of it, we got to keep changing the filter, and it's a pain in the ass. So we get a couple waters here and there, just like for the evening time sometimes, if we don't feel like just filling up the water. So we're gonna get a couple of those. I get some Evians. I think the Mountain Valley is nice. It's in a glass bottle, but it's like fucking $40 for a case of those waters. And it's a pain in the ass just to have that glass bottle sitting around, right? So I'm gonna grab some strawberries first. So let's head right back over here. Watch this gimbal turn. Okay. Okay. You know, I love this camera, but the one thing about it that's a little bit of a struggle point is the gimbal tries to rotate to center back on my face when I'm going around corners or if I'm turning or I have any movement in general. So that is a little bit of pain in the ass. But aside from that, it's all good. Hmm. Hard to tell. I'm just going to grab one. Hope for the best. Okay. You know, I find it often to be very therapeutic to come to the grocery store. I think, you know, going back to when I first started bodybuilding when I was a kid, I used to actually go there like real late at night, like 11 p.m. when like nobody was there. And I would just kind of scan around the store when I was first getting started to try to understand, you know, what sorts of foods that I could be creative with but I can also be budget friendly with when I was fucking not, I didn't have shit for money, to help me actually get what I needed in terms of bodybuilding and make sure I'm getting the right things. But it was nice not to have any distractions because I'm pretty introverted of a person. Now I can be extroverted, but when it comes down to it, I do prefer my solitude and my peace, and I definitely need some of that sometimes. Okay, it looks like there is no liter Evian bottles. So, what am I going to do in this situation? It sounds like Fiji it is. Okay. What are these, though? These are fucking... Okay, we'll get some Fijis. Okay. All right, grab a couple of waters. Now all I need is the frozen blueberries, and we will get heading out of here today. Okay. Oh, they're right up front. They changed positions on me. So let me just grab these. I'll grab one towards the bottom here so it'll be nice and frozen for the way home. So I like these organic wild blueberries because they're a lot smaller, I find. They're not like these huge, like artificial, like pumped full of fucking, I don't know, hormones and all kinds of shit. These things are really tiny. And I like that because when I'm eating a blueberry, I don't want to feel like I'm fucking trying to bite through a marble, right? They're like tiny little beads, and they're perfect because when I add them into that bowl, they don't have a large amount of sugar profile to them. A lot of berries don't. They're usually pretty high in fiber and also polyphenols, which are good for your brain. And so when it comes down to it, I like to have a variety of fruit in my diet. Like I said, I'm not a big vegetable person. I'm sure I've talked about that previously with oxalation concentration. Basically, the vegetable attacks your body. And what I always like to tell people is in the summertime, what do you see that the bugs eating? It's generally the fruits, right? It's not the vegetables. And that's probably for a pretty good reason. Nature begets nature, and there's some natural intelligence there in place, and we should probably follow suit with that. Plus, we're monogastric, we have one stomach. The only time we should eat vegetables is when they're fermented because our body has a very hard time breaking them down. So I tend to not have any. I feel much better on them. And whenever I've taken them out of my clients' diets, I've looked at their blood markers, their inflammation has dropped, their GI tract has improved in terms of digestion, which means they digested their food better. They've had less symptoms of like bloating and gas, and their testosterone levels have actually increased, which is kind of interesting. Also, usually iodine levels when it comes to thyroid. And it just seems like overall their quality of life increases, their sleep gets better, their training and their performance, any type of residual inflammation inside their joints reduces. It just seems to me like we're not meant to eat vegetables. And that could be my perspective. It doesn't need to be yours. You know, you do what fits your profile. I'm just doing what is based on my own anecdote and what I found progress with in the past. And also in terms of like when you're trying to grow in the off season, like you're trying to really build some muscle, vegetables have way too much volume to them. You know, they take up too much room in your stomach, and that's going to really impede your ability to eat more food, right? So why would I have something that has a low potential return and it just fills me up so I can't eat, right? It doesn't really make much sense, right? So what I mean by that is I'm trying to eat more food when I'm growing. And if I'm getting full because the vegetables are like filling my stomach up with volume and they're hard to digest, but I'm not getting a lot of calories from them, I'm not getting a high return from that. It's kind of like fluff, you know? It's kind of like doing shit in business that's like, you know, hey, it's pretty to add all this extra shit in, but are you even getting a return on it, right? Like, what is the return on your investment, right? What's the ROI? And the ROI for vegetables when you're trying to build muscle is relatively low, okay? And I'm not 75 years old, so I don't need a massive amount of fiber to help me shit. So, so that's that. I got everything in the cart here. Just to recap, you know, I have fresh fruit, so raspberries, strawberries. I also have some frozen organic blueberries. For meats and protein, I have eggs, egg whites, beef, ground chicken. I have some pickles in there, some seasoning profile. We have some pepper, and then I have some organic ketchup. I'd also do organic mustard, and the one I get from here actually has apple cider vinegar in it instead of regular vinegar, and it has this like little appley taste to it. It's actually pretty good. I added it to my fish. And then I have some potatoes, some rice cakes, and some waters, and I think that's about it, friends. So this trip in itself, I mean, since I'm at Whole Foods and since I'm in Scottsdale, and since everything's organic, it's probably gonna be close to like 250 bucks-ish, but that should last me and my wife for the rest of the week. So about $1,000 a month we spend on groceries, and You know, to a lot of people, that's a barrier for them, right? Like, and they think, you know, wow, spending that much money on food, that's a lot of money, right? Well, I could argue with you at some point you're going to spend that money regardless, and why not put that money into something that gives you a return, right? And it's kind of like investing money into the stock market or crypto or whatever like that. My asset is my health, and yours should be too, right? You should be consistently investing into your health and your well-being. And that requires you to purchase food that's healthy, that's going to also work towards your goals, because you can eat healthily, but that doesn't mean you're going to see any aesthetic progress from it, right? You're going to want to make sure that you're getting things that's also giving you a return, right? In the aesthetic department, it's helping you lose fat or build muscle, right? So that's how I choose to eat, and this is what it ends up costing, right? And at the end of the day, it's not what it costs, it's what it's worth, and it's worth being healthy to me. It should be worth it to you too. So, you know, take some of these tips into consideration, you know, when you're going for your next grocery trip. This is just what I eat. Now, when it comes to meal breakdown, I can also go over that, but these are the essential ingredients that I use to construct all of my food. A couple things that probably aren't noted here is avocado oils that I use on my potatoes. I use an avocado oil spray for when I'm cooking my egg whites, the mustard, and then I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much everything that I eat, you know? So I get a high profile of nutrition. I also take a high quality multivitamin. I have my supplementation on top of that. That ends up kind of supplementing everything that I'm not really getting inside of my diet in large concentrations. But everything here, organic, you know, it's helping me reach my goals, and it's getting the job done, right? Keeping my body fat low, keep my muscle mass up, and making me have great quality energy. And if that is what you're looking to do, then you'll get a lot of value from this video. But if not, if you just eat for entertainment value, then this is probably not going to be a very useful video for you, okay? All right, so now I'm going to go check out, and that's that, you know? This is everything that I get throughout the week. This is a once a week trip. I go home and I prep all this stuff, and yeah, so, all right, friends. Well, thanks for watching. And what I'll do next is, if you guys want to see more nutrition videos, such as like grocery hauls, or even me doing my meal breakdown, go ahead and leave me a comment down below and let me know what you're looking for in terms of the content itself, right? Like if you want to see the meal construction, if you want to see the prep process, if you want to see everything that I eat in a day, like a full day of eating, just go ahead and leave me a comment down below. Make sure you also like the video, and please subscribe to the channel. All right, I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.